butter braid pastry comes as a frozen braided bread, and it's a yeast product. It has fruit filling in it, and it has many layers of butter in it, and you let it raise overnight. When it's baked, it gives this airy texture to it, and it's just soft and it's wonderful. And it's delicious for breakfast, for special occasions, or just because.
We get calls every day from people who call us and want to know how can we get more of that, and how wonderful they thought it was. It's the best pastry they've had. I've been a baker all my life, and this is just as good as anything I've ever made.
And one thing I think they really like about it is when they're baking it in their oven, they get to smell the aroma of it, and I think it brings back memories to Grandma's kitchen or to their mother's kitchen. We were married in 1974. That's right, isn't it, honey? Oh, okay. And we were blessed with 6 children, 3 girls and 3 boys. And our oldest son, Rick, he was 19, going to college at Kirkwood in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and he was heading back on a Sunday afternoon, and he was killed in a car accident. So that was a very difficult time for us. He's still very missed, but he was going to plan on coming back and working in our business. But we try to keep his memory alive, and our grandchildren have never met him, of course, but they still talk about Uncle Rick because we talk about him a lot.
The farm crunch hit us in the middle 80s, which was a time when prices of grain was low, interest was very high, land prices were going down, and if you're in debt, that creates a big problem if you're a farmer. So to try to help the situation, I got a job in town working for Dick's Office Equipment. I started out as a service person, then went to a salesperson. And still we was having some struggles trying to make ends meet. So with the large family, we decided to put out a truck patch. And we went to farmer's market with it, and I'll let Marlene kind of go from there.
Well, when I went, then we would take the vegetables, and I saw other women had baked products there, and I thought, well, I could do that. I could bake some things. And I had a friend that made this pastry, and so she was willing to teach me how to make it. And we would take it there, and they would blow a whistle when you could start selling on Saturday mornings, and when people could buy, and people were just lined up to buy this pastry. And it was before that time that you had suggested, there was a lot of work to going to farmer's market. We had to pick our vegetables on Friday. We wanted everything fresh. And so he suggested, why don't you, to help out your labor, why don't you try making the butter braid pastry at the beginning of the week, freezing it, and then we could take it out like on Friday night, and it would raise, and then it would be fresh. So that helped very much. So we did that, and it was the year 1990, and farmer's market was done. And then there was a little mall over in Algona, and I thought, well, I could bake Christmas cookies and candies and the butter braid pastries, and I would take them over to their market, the little mall, for a bake sale. Well, it was fine. It went very well, but with 6 children, I needed some time for family time to get ready for Christmas, and I said to Ken, I need a week at least to get ready, and I'm not going to do any baking. And we had calls for 60 braids that week. And so it was just shortly after that. I remember it being right after Christmas. I really felt something inside say, you need to do something with this.
Well, we felt we wanted to try marketing the butter braid pastries, so how do you start a business? So we started looking into different things. I know the Small Business Development out of Spencer came and helped us, talk to us some things we need to do, showed us where we need to get the information so that we could set up an area in our house where we could start making this by getting hold of the different agencies. So when we found that out, one of the things we couldn't do was do it in our kitchen. It had to be someplace separate, so that's when we decided to go to the basement of our home. We had a little place down there, kind of a kitchenette that we could use. So we started down the basement after we looked into all those things.
I do remember that we didn't want to tell anybody. I said, don't you tell anybody about this, because we're in a farming community. I mean, who makes bread for a living? It was something that was really far out. And I remember one of our current employees said they thought we were kind of a little bit off.
Crazy.
Yeah, a little crazy. Because it was just such a not normal thing for farmers to do. But anyway, I do remember that. In the summer, we had the KitchenAid mixer that made 4 loaves, but in September, we hired our first employee, and we also got a used mixer that made 24 loaves. It wasn't very pretty, but it worked. And we used paring knives and rolling pins. And we were making about 280 loaves in the basement, and just working that dough took a lot of physical strength, and we had a gentleman make a rolling pin, a real fat, big one. It just helped with that. So we weren't, just working so hard.
When we needed to make more, we moved to the garage. And again, we added the walk-in freezer, insulated the garage, put air conditioning and heat in it, and just give us more room up there. We added another mixer that was larger. I think it made 72 loaves per batch.
And then we got 2 dough rollers. I can still remember Ken actually brought the first one down the basement. And we had something, a processor thing that cut the butter. So some of the paring knives, some of those things were improving for us. Well, we were 6 months in the basement, 6 months in the garage, so we did a lot of moving. And we knew we were outgrowing the basement, or at the garage at that time. And I remember someone offering that they had a building in a neighboring town, but we were pretty loyal to our little town of West Bend.
We definitely have a soft spot for our community, and we wanted to stay. So it was really, to us, it wasn't a choice, either stay or we'd just keep and work out in the farm someplace.
And one morning I was going to a bridal shower, and we thought we had kind of checked all the buildings, what was possible for us in West Bend. And there was a man painting a building. And I thought, if he's there when I come back, I'm going to stop and just ask what he's doing with that building. And he was on a ladder, and I asked him, what do you do? What is this building used for? And he says, it's just storage. And I told him what our need was, and Mike Stile, he said he would be glad to let us rent the building for what we needed it for. So that's kind of how we found something in town. The first day we were in the hatchery building, it was a long day, and at the end of the day, Ken went out to go home, and there was no vehicle. So he called home, and what did you say? You think you used to know how many times the
No one answered. It just rang and rang. I used to know how many times it would ring before the phone quit ringing. But it was obvious she was sleeping and didn't hear the phone, so I slept on some, if I'm not mistaken, some bags of flour. Next morning I get up and call her, and she says, "Oh, you must have got up early and went back to work."
He said, no, I never came home. So that was the first day of the hatchery. We had many memories of that one.
Well, when we were in the basement, again, as I mentioned earlier, I was a salesman for Dick's Office Equipment, and so I had a route that I would go about 3 times a week, different areas. And whenever I'd sell a piece of equipment or some supplies, I'd give them a fresh baked butter bread pastry, and they would, and I'd say, "I'll stop back next week and see what you needed." And I don't think they knew I could sell it to them, but next week I'd come back and they'd say, "Boy, that was good. Is there any way I can get more of that?" And I'd say, "Yes, you can buy it frozen if you would like to, and put it on your cabinet overnight, let it raise and bake it fresh in the morning," and they liked that idea. So I would sell them this frozen butter bread pastry. And to do that, I put a freezer in the back of my pickup, and we'd plug it in at night, be good and cold, and the next morning we'd put as many butter bread pastries as I think I was going to sell that day. And most of the time I knew exactly how many that was ordered, and so I would take orders one week and deliver them the next. And I had about 3 or 4 different routes I took throughout the week. Pretty soon I couldn't get enough in one freezer, so I had to put 2 freezers in the back of my pickup. And I remember somebody in town says, I wonder when he's ever going to get those delivered, them freezers. But anyway, we just eventually started putting them in stores, the Butterbraid pastries, calling on different store managers and telling them about the success we had and selling them to people in the community and what if they'd be willing to put it in. And it was pretty easy sell. And when we was in the basement, I remember I had it in about 25 stores. And Marlene said to me one day, she said, don't put it in any more stores. That was, you just can't keep up now.
I was kind of bossy, wasn't I?
Well, you were the one in production,
Yeah.
so that's how we kind of marketed in those two areas and how it got started. So. One of the places I usually stop as a Dick's Office Equipment salesman was at schools. And I remember going to the Humboldt School, and the secretary there knew about the Butterbraid pastries and asked me casually, have you ever thought about doing Butterbraid pastries as a fundraiser? I said, no, I never ever thought about it, but let's try it. She said, yeah, let's do. So we tried a fundraiser in that school, and I don't remember what group it was. It seems like it was the band or something. They did a good job selling, and I don't remember how many we sold that very first fundraiser, but it was enough that I decided I'm going to try this in other schools. And so it seemed like the Butterbraid fundraising just really took off. In 2002, 80% of our sales came through fundraising, and 20% was in the stores. We felt more comfortable with the fundraising. That seemed to be taking off. It seemed like we needed to focus on one thing and not try to focus on two. So the decision was made to take it out of stores, and that's been a real good decision for us. Our very first Christmas that we had for our employees, their Christmas party, I remember I struggled within myself whether I should have an out loud prayer at the meal because I didn't know what people would think. And then I thought of one of my favorite Bible verses, which is, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not upon thine own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct thy paths. And of course, as a young company, we needed our paths directed, and this was one way I could acknowledge him. And I think that's carried all the way through the company, and I think that's really helped. To me, that's one of the more important decisions I think that I made at that time. And at this time, I'd just like to say that we felt God's guiding through the whole our companies from young to even today. And we just want to pass that credit on to him for his help and guidance.